Hello and welcome. I'm Dhruvin, principal with Pravega Ventures, and with me is my colleague Rohit, a partner at the fund. We are here to talk about a very important milestone for the fund, which is Sage's acquisition of Fyle, one of our portfolio companies. Now, meaningful exits in SaaS companies built out of India are not very common. So this is a particularly interesting one. Rohit uh, was the person who led the seed investment into Fyle and has had a ringside view into the growth of the company and obviously then its eventual exit to Sage. So we're here to ask him a few questions, get his perspective on the company's journey and the learnings from that. So let's dive in. Rohit, just to set the context, could you give us a view of the lay of the land at that time? The SaaS investment landscape, what kind of companies were getting created out of India?
Yeah, so I think if you look back at that era, SaaS investment was kind of just about picking up because before that we were in the build up of the consumer internet 1.0 era in some sense, and some companies from India had started to become big. So we were seeing quite a new set of founders come up and build from India for this thing, and then the VC community was kind of discovering that this is a space in which the next value creation could happen. So I think this was that early phases of SaaS build up from India.
Got it. And what kind of founders were we coming across? Were they coming from any particular sets of companies? And what made the founders of File stand out?
Yeah, so I think I'll answer your second question first, which is what made Yash and Shiva stand out for us was so one is they came with a great recommendation from my friend and batchmate Joydeep, who was running Qbol, and both Yash and Shiva were kind of founding team members there. And the combination of these two, right? So Shiva was a great, deeply technical person, having built world-class product at multiple companies, had global exposure. Yash had done enterprise sales, and in my view, and still today, I think that's a great combination. I think product building and GTM are both equally important when you, look at building a software SaaS company, and these two presented the right combination. And then both of them had a very deep conviction of the problem they're solving, which is always very important. And this that a very deeply felt need to fix the pain of expense management, and they've done a bunch of sort of early sort of prototypes around that. So in that sense, it seemed like the archetypical team of this is what we want to back.
Got it. And at this stage, which I guess we came in at seed,
Mhm.
there are certain kinds of risks that we think about.
Yeah.
There's product risk, team risk, market risk. So at that point, what was your thought process with regard to the space that Fyle was operating?
Sure. So I think when we looked at that space, there was clearly, like companies of a generation or two generation before, like Concur and stuff, or Enterprise. And there was sort of some early mid-market companies, but again from a previous generation. And we were seeing a whole bunch of new age expense management companies come up across the world, both in US, Europe, which were focusing on this building new sort of employee friendly, more sort of easy to use software. That was the whole sort of SaaS era. So that's what that's where kind of Fyle came in.
Could you give us an overview of the market? I think you covered the established side of it with Concur, etc.
Yeah.
But how did the competitive landscape at the early stage look like? Were the people who were already trying to solve this problem using different kinds of entry point, or were these guys unique or early movers in that context?
So I would say we were in that whole democratization era of SaaS, where what was earlier available for large companies like Concur, people are taking a shot at bring it down to mid market and SMBs, right? So that's where kind of Fyle was playing in. And if I look back at that, that space and that time, it was actually not so crowded as it sort of became later on. So there were as I said, SMB market was just about, getting ready for it. Bunch of companies planning for that. And then obviously there were some new approaches in terms of card-based bundling, etc., that were kind of emerging.
Got it. And the next question I had is on the evolution. Like, so obviously, I'm sure we had a thesis about how this company would evolve and put our money in. Did it evolve in a similar fashion? Was it very different?
So I think a lot of what we thought. So look, when we entered this company,
Mhm.
right, we in some sense took both the product risk and the GTM risk. The product risk was actually, in my mind, not so much of a risk because I had sort of, great belief in, Shiva's ability to kind of, uh, you know, uh, build this product and build a world class product. And I think kind of panned out in that sense. Obviously, GTM was something that, for most teams out of India at that point, uh, you know, uh, building GTM from India for a global market was something and the whole playbook was not very well set, right? So a lot of teams are experimenting on that. And I think that was a risk that we took in some sense. That was a real risk that we took, right? In Fyle's case, they, first developed the product and then, started going after the Indian mid-market customers, right? And I think the idea for them was to first sort of, do that for a while and then perfect the product and then sort of move on to the US market. Uh, uh, but I think as sort of, realization set in after, maybe a couple of years of doing that these two markets behave very different. So
Mm.
just to give an example, in expense management in India, corporate card is actually not a very sort of, common thing.
Yeah,
Most companies would rather give cash advances to their employees and then you would settle it and things like that. And then obviously a lot more reliance on, back end offices to kind of, do reconciliation and, expense report generation, etc. Whereas the US market is very different, right? So I think that was a sort of key realization that while your product core could be the same, but the whole sort of, nuances of workflows around that, the way people integrate, the way people sort of actually use are very different.
got it. Um, and I mean, since then, I think we've had this discussion with multiple founders, and it keeps happening about India versus US. You covered one part of it when it
Mhm.
comes to product and GTM, but in terms of actually incorporating the company, when the founders come from India, they have to sell in the US. It's very clear. Uh, we did go through that journey with Fyle as well. So could you throw some light on that? How that decision was arrived at, whether to set up base in India or the US, and how it impacted the company's
Sure.
progress.
So I think when File started, actually, the dominant thing was still to, founders to start the company in India and then, they would venture out to US after some point. In File's case, so I think the key realization was one is, by having your, HQ or headquarter entity in India, there's a myth that it's actually a hindrance to doing business, to fundraise. But I would say on both those counts, our experience and our learning is actually doesn't really matter, right? Because as long as you set up a subsidiary in US, you're fine. US customers are fine, sort of doing that. And then India is kind of not a backwater now in terms of, it's a well discovered, geography for investment. Pretty much all globally relevant investors, uh, angels also because of their India networks, etc. We never had an issue that, okay, oh, we could not raise capital because we are India HQ and we should flip to US, right? So I think on that count, I would say it's probably easier to raise capital if you are based in India.
Got it. And another concern that founders typically bring out when it comes to India, US is that if they're selling to regulated industries in the US, which is pharmaceuticals or healthcare or finance, that could also be a consideration about whether you set up base or you domicile in the US. Was that ever an issue?
I don't think so. That was never an issue. I think the key thing is, are you actually building a product that your customer wants, right? I mean, which translates to, are you in the right geography? Do you know that environment? Are you sort of getting enough face time with them to be able to know their requirements, their concerns, and build for that, right? And I think that is the key thing. Not because they would look for compliances and certifications, etc., which you can get whether you are sitting in US or you're sitting from India.
Got it. Understood. Um, and the next thing I guess we've discussed in the past is their GTM strategy, which I get played a key role in their growth. The partnerships that they created, plus the channels that they selected. Uh, what was your experience? I'm sure you spoke to the founders a lot about these decisions. So how did that evolve, and what finally worked for Fyle?
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point, Dhruvin, because look, any big market that you go to, there are multiple segments to sell to. There are multiple ways to reach those segments, right? So it's not like a one size fits all market, right? We typically often think that you are selling to SMB, so you'll probably just do an inside sales. You do sort of an SEO SEM based kind of campaigns and do it, but that's actually not true. In case of Fyle, for example, they decided to focus on process of discovery. And this actually happened post-COVID when a whole bunch of companies were, who were traditionally more using Excel-based kind of, scheme for their expense management, and they were trying to sort of automate, right, or digitize, right? And whole bunch of these companies were in, like a, construction or civil works or some sort of uh, non-tech first industries, to put it right, and they rely on CPAs, right, and for all their accounting, expense management, all that work, right. So I think the first thing that that sort of I think Yash and Shiva kind of understood and cracked was how to tap into that channel, right, and turned out it's a great channel. CPAs are a trusted sort of source for these companies to rely on, and so that was the one angle that sort of gave one leg of growth. Also gave a lot of legitimacy, if I could say, to the company in customer size. And then I guess the second part is when they started to tap into the larger sort of financial institutions, right? And again, the driver for that was like all of these institutions had a corporate card product. They were laggards when it comes to innovation on the software side, in terms of bundling the expense management, etc. And for them, Fyle was a great partner. And I would go back to my first point is that the fact that they had a really world class product and they could go and stand the scrutiny of a large bank, for example, in terms of all the data security, privacy, all those requirements. So you need to have that product strength and agility to sort of platformize your product to be able to partner. I think that's what kind of that was a Fyle's strength, and I think they sort of tapped into that.
Got it. And I think more recently in the US, companies like Brex have scaled quite well. And was that an opportunity that Fyle was maybe too early for that, or that was something that that could also have been a good product?
So I think by the time Fyle sort of started focusing on the US market, I think that opportunity had played out a little bit.
Okay.
And that is also an opportunity that was based on companies having raised large amounts of capital, because they're actually sort of funding those expense management working capital out of those, right? Okay. So I think that was a segment of market that developed like that, and then there was this whole segment which was just digitizing and how do you enable the traditional corporate card. And I think Fyle tapped into that, and if you look at overall basis, actually that journey is still starting, because the corporate credit card market, which is controlled by traditional issuers, is actually of order of magnitude larger than what is tapped into by the card plus software bundled space.
Got it. Very interesting. And then let's move to the acquisition. I'm sure you were involved from day one. So tell us a little bit about how the conversation started, and how did Fyle fit into Page's tag and strategy?
Yeah. So I think Fyle was in this enviable position of having a choice of what to do at that point. Right?
Okay.
I mean, they're profitable, which is sort of always great because it gives you that choice. They had number of investors who wanted to invest in the company because company was growing phenomenally well and had a large market ahead of it, right? And then there was also this inbound offer, and it happened because they were already selling in that ecosystem of customers, right? So both Fyle and Sage sell to the SMB segment. So both these entities are known to each other. They had presented to the Sage annual conference. So that's how that conversation got started, and that kind of offer came.
Got it. And how did Fyle fit into Sage's strategy going forward? Like, how is Sage positioned, and how does Fyle help with that?
So as far as I can tell, one is if generally if you're all selling to the same segment, it's always a plus, right? I mean,
Okay.
for Sage, it is a a key product line for their existing base. They already sell to that CFO suite, right? And it kind of fits nicely because they can just turn it on in their
Hmm.
catalog of products that they sell to, and the fact that their base kind of already knew about it
Okay.
because and same set of implementation partners, etc. There's a lot in common and lot of complementarity
Okay.
to this partnership.
Got it. And is this a scenario that we had thought of in the early days when we were speaking to the founders that this could be an outcome like this, or was it something else that we built in? Because typically when we try and do some rough modeling
Mhm.
when we enter, we try to build out cases. Was this one of those cases?
In some sense, it was in the sense that when you do sort of invest in sort of software companies, I would say, right?
Yeah.
I would say if you if the product is right, it always creates value. Now the question is whether you sort of go on to journey of becoming a public company or you kind of end up getting acquired at some point. That's I think that obviously depends on a lot of things, etc. But I think that's always a and actually it matters in some sense, like in what market you're built. So this market expense management or overall the sort of the accounting, that kind of area has always been very acquisitive. There's a lot of different kind of players who kind of come into that market, and then if you build the right product, you that's always an option, I would say.
Got it. Um, and another question that comes to mind is when you get an inbound offer like this, and when, as you said, they were in a good spot where they had multiple funding offers as
Mhm.
well. Um, how how does a founder decide? Like, did you help them work through a framework, for example, about what this could mean for them going forward, what their goals were for the near future? So throw some light
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. No, I think it's always interesting because it was a good offer. It was a good fair offer, right? And I think there were two parts. I mean, obviously, founders, were enjoying running the business, growing it. So an option is to take money and kind of keep growing the business, and at that rate, I'm sure at in a couple of years time they would actually been ready to even go IPO in India,
Okay.
right? So that was an option you could go on, and as I said, this so we sort of did a lot of brainstorming. Founders are also trying to figure out what are the options, good and bad, and we are always supportive that look, whichever way you take, we are with you there, because for us it is a company is doing well, in either case, it's been a good return for us. I think at that point they thought that maybe as a company they would do much better to thrive inside a large organization,
Okay.
having all the resources of their sales and GTM motion, etc. I think in the end they kind of reached that decision, and I think we're supportive of that.
All right. Interesting. Um, I think we're at the end of the segment. Just one last question. If you were to, in hindsight, pick three things that could inform our future decisions, investment decisions
Mhm.
in software from Fyle's journey, what would those be?
Yeah, I think so. Some things, I think some convictions got deepened. I would say, so for example, the fact that you should have a ability to build a world class product. I think is kind of non-negotiable in the sense, right? I think that's one. I think the biggest sort of learning though, and I think it's still evolving in the some sense because I still see founders kind of see confused about it that it's always very difficult to ride in two boats in the sense that if you're trying to build something for both India and US, I still see a lot of founders trying to do that, but it's a very hard thing to pull off, right? Because US markets are very deep, much more competitive, things move at a faster pace, and you just can't do justice to that market by sitting here. You don't get that pace time. You're not in the thick of things. So I would say that founders have to be super focused on the market they're going after, be present in that market, and then kind of build towards that.
Cool. I think this is very helpful. I'm sure you had a great journey as Fyle, and hopefully you have many more.
Yeah, no, I think we were sort of fortunate to be part of that journey. Learned a lot from Yash and Shiva as they built Fyle into this great company, and hope to see a lot more of this happen for companies from India.
All right. Thanks a lot.